She gave water to a stranger, but never imagined that kindness would unlock a billionaire's hidden fortune. In a village where pride breaks hearts and lies destroy names, one farmer's daughter discovers the wealth that kindness alone can reveal. Welcome to African Tales by Sanan, stories filled with emotion, suspense, and timeless lessons. Tell us in the comments when and from where you're watching. Your voices are part of our journey. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful African stories that move hearts and reveal hidden fortunes. The farmer's daughter, who cared for a stranger and discovered his fortune. In the heart of a vast African village, surrounded by endless yam and cassava fields, lived a farmer named Okeke and his wife Neka. Their wealth was not measured in gold or in titles, but in sweat, soil, and the laughter of their 5 children. Yet in a world where millionaires and billionaires traveled through distant cities, Okeke's family remained bound to the earth, dependent on each harvest for survival. Among the children, the second daughter, Adana, stood out. Her name meant father's daughter, and she carried herself with strength and dignity. Though her hands were rough from farm work, her heart was soft with kindness. Villagers often said, if kindness could be measured, Adana would already be a millionaire. Her elder sister, Ngozi, was the beauty of the family. Gentle, soft-spoken, graceful, her eyes shone like the evening stars. Many young men admired her, but they came with empty promises, with no land, no cattle, and no true fortune. Adana, however, valued wisdom over beauty. She said often, Adana, teasing, "Sister, beauty without wisdom is like a pot without food. It shines on the outside but gives nothing to the hungry." Ngozi, laughing softly, "And wisdom without kindness can turn the heart to stone. That is why you, Adana, are always respected." The family's poverty was real. Their hut's roof leaked when the rains came. Their father's hoes and machetes were old, worn from years of farming. Neka often sat by the fire at night, sighing over the future of her daughters. Neka, worried, how shall we give them a better life? The world is ruled by millionaires and billionaires. What can a poor farmer offer his daughters? Okeke, firmly, we may not have riches, Neka, but we have honor. Let our daughters marry men who respect them. Wealth without respect is a curse. But whispers moved through the village that season. Whispers of strangers from the city arriving, strangers who were said to be rich merchants, maybe even secret millionaires. At the busy market, women selling plantains spoke with excitement. Young men carrying firewood spread tales of wealthy landowners searching for trade. One evening, as the family ate their simple meal of yam porridge, Ngozi shared what she had heard. Ngozi, they say 2 strangers have come to the village. One is tall, with the carriage of a leader. The other is friendly, laughing with everyone. Some even say one of them might be a billionaire in disguise. Adana raised her eyebrow. Adana, skeptical, a billionaire in our village? Sister, don't let market gossip fool you. If wealth were so easy to stumble upon, our father would be a millionaire by now. Okeke, smiling faintly, still, let us not despise the talk. Sometimes fortune wears the clothes of a stranger. Remember, even the wealthiest man must drink water, and even the poorest man can give him a calabash. His words stayed in Adana's heart longer than she expected. She often wondered if kindness, simple and true, could bridge the gap between poverty and fortune. The next morning, as the cock crowed and the first rays of sun painted the farmland gold, Adana and Ngozi set off to the river with clay pots balanced on their heads. Along the path, they heard the elders speaking of destiny. Elder Madhu, the world is a strange place. A poor farmer may work all his life and remain poor, but one act of kindness can make him richer than the billionaires. Elder Kanishi, ah, you speak truth. I have seen it before. Fortune comes not to the proud, but to the humble. Adana walked silently, listening. Their words stirred something inside her. She thought of the stories sung by the village griots, of strangers who tested the hearts of people before revealing their hidden treasures. At the riverbank, other village girls whispered eagerly. Girl 1. I saw the strangers yesterday. One wears simple clothes, but his eyes, they are the eyes of a man who commands respect. Girl 2. The other laughs freely. He even bought roasted maize for children. They say he might be a millionaire's son. Ngozi smiled shyly, her heart already fluttering with curiosity. Adana, however, remained guarded. Adana, firmly. Sisters, do not be blinded by wealth. A rich man's smile can hide a cruel heart. I would rather marry a poor man with honor than a billionaire who despises me. The girls laughed, yet her words carried weight. When Adana and Ngozi returned home, they found their mother seated beneath the mango tree, weaving mats. She looked up at them with seriousness. Neka, my daughters, listen to me. The world is changing. Wealth decides the fate of families. If you meet these strangers, carry yourselves with dignity. You never know who walks in rags but carries a billionaire's fortune in his hand. Ngozi nodded, while Adana frowned. Adana, mother, must wealth always be the measure of a man? What of kindness? What of respect? Neka, softly. Child, kindness fills the heart, but wealth fills the stomach. A man who has both is rare. If fortune brings you before such a man, do not turn away. Her words lingered in the air. That evening, the whole family sat around the fire as their father shared stories. His voice, deep and steady, carried the weight of generations. Okeki, long ago, in a village not far from here, a farmer's daughter gave water to a tired traveler. She did not know he was a great chief in disguise. Because of her kindness, her family rose from poverty to wealth. Never despise the stranger at your gate. For in Africa, we believe, the stranger you serve today may be the billionaire who blesses your tomorrow. Adana listened, her heart torn between doubt and wonder. She wanted to believe that kindness could change destiny, but poverty had taught her to be cautious. The next week was busy in the village. Preparations for the annual harvest festival filled the air with excitement. Drummers practiced beneath the baobab tree, children chased goats around the square, and women roasted groundnuts for the gathering. Festivals were not just celebrations, they were opportunities. Families hoped to catch the eye of traders, landowners, and sometimes even traveling millionaires who came to witness the richness of village life. Okeke polished his old hoe until it shone, though its blade was thin. Okeke, to his daughters, at the festival, walk with grace. A good name is worth more than a sack of gold. But remember, fortune can be blind. A poor girl may find herself in the eyes of a billionaire if her spirit shines brighter than her poverty. Ngozi blushed at her father's words, but Adana rolled her eyes gently. Adana, father, why does everyone speak of billionaires and millionaires as if they fall from the sky? Wealthy men do not come searching for farmers' daughters. Okeki, smiling knowingly, ah, my Adana, you doubt too much. Remember the proverb, the chicken that scratches the ground today may be the eagle that rules the sky tomorrow. That night, as the moon cast silver light over the farmland, Adana sat outside listening to the distant drums. She thought of her mother's warning, her father's hope, and the villagers' whispers. Somewhere deep in her heart, she felt that change was coming, though she did not know in what form. The day of the harvest festival arrived. Villagers wore bright wrappers and beads, their laughter filling the air. Merchants displayed fabrics and spices, and the griots sang songs of heroes who had risen from poverty to wealth. As Adana and Ngozi entered the square, heads turned. Ngozi's beauty shone like the morning sun, while Adana's steady gaze carried wisdom beyond her years. Village woman, whispering, "These daughters of Okeki may be poor, but their spirits are rich. Who knows? Perhaps destiny will make them wives of millionaires." The festival drums thundered as dancers circled the square. Suddenly, the crowd parted as two strangers entered. One was tall, serious, with an air of authority, Oba. The other, cheerful and approachable, smiled and greeted everyone, Tay. The whispers began immediately. Man 1. They dress simply, but look at their bearing. That Oba walks like a lion. That Tay laughs like a man who has never known hunger. Woman 2. Do you not see? Wealth often hides in plain sight. They could be millionaires, even billionaires. Adana's eyes met Oba's across the crowd. For a moment, something unspoken passed between them. Pride, curiosity, maybe even destiny. But she turned away quickly, telling herself he was nothing but another arrogant stranger. What she did not know was that this meeting, this single festival day, would become the doorway to a tale of hidden fortune, broken pride, and a love that would transform her from the daughter of a poor farmer into the wife of a billionaire. The harvest festival had barely begun when the two strangers stepped into the heart of the village. Conversations faltered, drums slowed, and eyes turned. Their entrance was not with trumpets or carriages, but their presence carried weight heavier than gold. The taller of the two, Oba, carried himself with an air that demanded respect. His clothes were simple, yet the fabric was of the finest weave. His eyes scanned the crowd, not with arrogance, but with quiet calculation. His silence seemed louder than the beating drums. Beside him, his friend Tay moved like sunlight. He laughed easily, greeting children, shaking hands with elders, buying roasted plantains for strangers he had never met. If Oba was the hidden mountain, Tay was the flowing river. The villagers whispered. Woman 1 hushed. Who are they? No ordinary men walk with such confidence. Man 1. I hear they come from the city. Some say they are traders. Others say landowners. Woman 2, excitedly. Traders? Look at Oba's bearing. He is no trader. That one carries the silence of a billionaire. Man 2. Hush your tongue. In our land, the richest men wear the plainest clothes. Do you not remember the tale of the king who dressed as a beggar to test his people? Adana stood with her sister Ngozi, her arms folded, watching. She had no patience for gossip. To her, strangers were strangers. Wealth or no wealth, it did not matter. Yet her eyes could not help but linger on Oba. His silence annoyed her. His stillness challenged her. Meanwhile, Tay noticed Ngozi and was struck by her grace. He leaned toward Oba, whispering, Tay, smiling, look at her, Oba. That is beauty rare even in the cities. She shines like morning dew. Oba glanced briefly at Ngozi, then at Adana, whose eyes were sharp with curiosity. His lips pressed into a thin line. Oba, quietly, beauty is common. Wisdom is rare. Be careful where you place your admiration. Tay laughed and shook his head. Tay, always the cautious one. Must a man measure every smile before he allows himself joy? The two friends moved deeper into the festival. Tay joined in the dances, his voice rising with the songs. He was soon surrounded by villagers, his friendliness winning every heart. But Oba kept his distance, speaking little, observing much. It was then that another man entered the story, Cheeky, a traveler with a charming smile and a tongue smooth as palm oil. Chike was known for drifting from village to village, telling half-truths and weaving stories that made him appear grander than he was. He caught sight of Adana and bowed dramatically. Cheek, ah, the wise daughter of Okiki. I have heard whispers of your sharp tongue and kinder heart. Allow me to introduce myself. Chike, a man wronged by fortune, betrayed by the powerful. Adana tilted her head, curious but cautious. Adana, wronged by fortune or careless with it? Cheek sighed heavily, placing his hand on his chest. Cheek, careless, no. Once, I was close to wealth beyond measure, but a man, proud, heartless, arrogant, tore it from me. Do you see that silent stranger, Oba? He is the one who destroyed my chance at a better life. Adana's eyes widened, then narrowed. Adana? Oba? That quiet man? Cheek, nodding solemnly. Do not be fooled by his silence. His pride is greater than his wealth. He hides a fortune, yes, but his heart is stone. Mark my words, he will look down on every poor soul in this village. Adana's chest tightened. She remembered her father's warnings about judging too quickly, but Cheek's sincerity seemed real. She glanced again at Oba, who stood aloof, his arms crossed as though the festival were beneath him. Adana, muttering, if this is how billionaires behave, then wealth is nothing but a curse. The festival music swelled again as the drummers found a faster rhythm. Women clapped in circles, and the griot's call carried above the crowd. Griot, singing, who knows a man's fortune by his wrapper? Who knows a heart by its quiet? The stranger may be poor by cloth, rich by destiny. Tay, already beloved by children and elders, bought calabashes of palm wine and shared them freely. When he noticed Ngozi standing shyly near the spice sellers, he bowed with playful courtesy. Tay, warmly, sister, you have hidden the morning in your smile. If I greet you late, forgive me. Perhaps the sun kept you for itself. Ngozi laughed, the gentle sound like a reed flute. Ngozi, if you greet everyone this way, your words must cost you very little. Tay, grinning. Ah, but words are like seeds. Plant enough kindness and you harvest joy. Will you accept 1 cup of palm wine from a traveler who hopes to be worthy of your conversation? She accepted, and they stepped aside from the bustle, speaking softly. Tay asked about yams and cassava, about the rains, about the market's small economy. He listened without interrupting, nodding as if each sentence mattered. Tay, you speak of the fields as though you can hear them breathe. Ngozi, when hunger has visited your home, you learn to read the soil like scripture. Tay, quiet. Then the soil has made you wise. Across the square, Adana watched the ease growing between them. Her eyes, however, were anchored on Oba, silent, assessing, neither dancing nor pouring wine, only speaking when spoken to. To her, he seemed to wear distance like a second skin. She felt the sting of Cheek's earlier words and bristled. When their paths crossed near the cloth merchant's, Oba glanced at her, measured, unyielding. Oba, you are Adana, daughter of Okiki. Adana, steady. And you are Oba, stranger who believes silence is a shield. A few passers-by slowed, sensing heat. Oba, silence is a door. It opens for those who knock with intention. Adana, or it is a wall. It keeps out those who do not fit your measure. A beat of quiet settled. Oba's expression did not change, but his gaze sharpened. Oba, I measure little. I observe much. Adana, observation without compassion is a cold sun. It gives light, but no warmth. Something moved in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps. He inclined his head, a gesture of respect he offered rarely. Oba, You speak with the tongue of a proverb. Perhaps the griot has trained you. Adana, poverty trained me. It is the greatest teacher. They stood like two stones in a river of laughter and drum beats. Neither stepped aside. At that moment, Elder Madhu approached, tapping his staff. Elder Madhu, ah, the sparrow and the kite quarrel over the same branch. Children, relax your feathers. This is a festival. Let wisdom be sweet today. Oba bowed to the elder. Adana dipped her head, though fire still burned behind her calm. Oba, to Elder Madhu, your counsel is received. Adana, coolly, and mine is not required. She walked away, her steps quick, her dignity intact. Oba watched her leave, and though his face remained composed, his thoughts had begun to rearrange themselves. Pride, once set like clay in the sun, found a hint of water. Chica materialized by Adana's side as though conjured by complaint. Cheek, you see? He stares as if we are carved figures, not people. Wealth does that. A man can be a millionaire or a billionaire and still be poor in heart. Adana, curt. I do not envy his coin nor his pride. Cheek, softly leaning in. Then keep away from him. Men like Oba crush what they do not understand. Adana said nothing. She hated the feeling that someone could stand in her village and still make her feel small. The thought sharpened her tongue. She resolved never to bow to money, to titles, or to silent arrogance, pretending to be wisdom. Meanwhile, Tay and Ngozi's conversation had traveled from crops to stories. Tay, in my mother's town, we say, if you carry water for the river will one day carry you. You have carried your family. Who carries you? Ngozi, smiling, then lowering her eyes. God, and my sister, Tay. A strong alliance. May I, one day, be worthy to carry even a calabash beside you? She looked at him then, properly, fully. Not at his clothes, not at the ease of his laughter, but at his humility. Tay's kindness was not a strategy. It was a posture. Something warm unfolded in her chest. Ngozi, if you speak like this to every woman, you will have many enemies. Tay, laughing. Then let me have one friend instead. Not far away, Oba greeted Okeke and Neka with a respectful bow, surprising the few market women who expected city men to ignore villagers. Oba, your yam ridges are straight, sir. A farmer who aligns the earth aligns his life. Okeke, pleased. You have eyes for the field. Many from the city only have eyes for their mirrors. Neka, you speak like a chief, but you dress like a traveler. Oba, a chief's wrapper only warms the skin. A traveler's humility warms the village. Okeke liked him at once. Neka remained cautiously polite. The mother in her never stopped measuring the horizon for storms or blessings. As the afternoon wore on, the griot announced a storytelling contest. Anyone could speak, but the theme was kindness and fortune. Adana, despite her mood, stepped forward. Murmurs rose. She was known to weave words that landed like seeds. Adana, voice clear. Once, a woman fed a stranger who had no name. She did not know he was powerful. She did not ask if he was a millionaire or a billionaire. She only knew he was hungry. Years later, when drought came and the ground broke open, a caravan arrived with grain enough for every household. Its leader was the nameless man. He said, I came to repay a bowl of soup. And the village learned, fortune travels on the legs of kindness. Applause scattered like rain. Some clapped for the beauty of the tale, others for the sting in its tail. Oba listened without blinking. He felt as though she had placed a mirror before him and refused to look away first. When the clapping settled, the griot invited another voice. Against all expectations, Oba stepped forward. The square hushed, intrigued. Oba, evenly. A hunter once stalked a lion. He believed himself brave because he carried a spear, but he had never looked into the lion's eyes. When at last he did, he saw fear there, his own fear reflected. He lowered his spear. The lion turned away. The hunter learned that pride is a spear that wounds the arm that throws it. The silence stretched, then swelled into a deeper applause, surprise mixed with respect. Adana's brows lifted despite herself. She had not imagined that the quiet stranger could speak in parable and indict himself in the telling. Cheek hissed softly under his breath. Cheek, to Adana. Fine words. The proud can afford them. Adana, distracted. Or they cannot afford not to say them. Past sunset, torches flared, and the festival became a river of song. Tay danced near Ngozi, never too close, never presumptuous. Rather than claim her hand, he offered her choice. Tay, gentle, if your feet wish to rest, I will stand. If they wish to fly, I will follow. Ngozi, teasing. And if they wish to have neither follower nor witness, Tay, smiling, then I will bring a chair. They both laughed. Even Neka, watching from a distance, allowed herself a private smile. Oba remained a rock among ripples, but something in his stance had softened. When the elders blessed the field for next year's planting, he bowed his head with true reverence. He slipped away briefly and spoke with the chief steward, inquiring about seed stores and the village clinic's medicine needs. He did not declare these questions to the crowd. He made no speech. He simply asked and listened. Later, as the drums quieted and families began drifting home, Oba found himself near Adana again. By accident or design, he could not have said. The night air carried the scent of smoke and groundnut. Oba, your story about kindness, was it from your life? Adana, guarded. From our life. Hunger has sat at our table. Strangers, too. Oba, and if a stranger asked for shelter? Adana, I would give it, not because he is a stranger, because I'm Adana. He nodded slowly, almost to himself. Oba, names are promises. Adana, some people break their promises before they learn them. Oba, and some people keep them before they are asked. For the first time, the edge between them dulled, not into friendship, not yet, but into a silence that felt less like a wall and more like a bridge under construction. From the shadows, Chike watched with narrowed eyes. The more he saw, the more he sensed a complication to his narrative, one that might cost him the sympathy he fed on. Chike, whispering to himself, no, let the village remember. The rich are wolves. I will remind them. He slipped off to find new ears for old grievances. By the time the moon rose high, Tay had escorted Ngozi to her family's compound, leaving only the perfume of roasted plantain and the echo of his laughter. Tay, at the gate respectful. Thank you for your conversation. It is the most valuable thing I have bought today, and I bought much. Ngozi, smiling. It cost you only listening. Tay, listening is gold. I am only a poor man learning to spend it well. She held his gaze a heartbeat longer than courtesy required. Then she inclined her head and slipped inside. Tay stood a moment longer, the night suddenly full of possibilities, the word future tasting new. Oba walked the opposite path alone, the rhythm of his steps thoughtful. A voice like his father's rose from memory. A field can look small until you see how deep the soil runs. He understood the proverb differently tonight. Some fields were people, and some soils resisted easy reading. He did not yet know that destiny had set a table for him and written Adana's name on a place he had never expected to sit. The harvest festival stretched late into the night, but even joy has shadows. While Tay and Ngozi's bond grew with each exchanged word, and while Oba and Adana circled each other like fire and rain, Cheeky was busy weaving his own net. He moved from ear to ear, planting seeds of suspicion. Cheek, to one villager, that silent man, Oba. He is no friend of the poor. In another town, I saw him crush a family with debts. Cheek, to another, do you not see how he measures us? He is a millionaire who despises farmers. He will drink our palm wine, but spit in our calabash when our backs are turned. Chike, to a group of young men, beware him. A billionaire's pride is heavier than iron. Better to trust a poor man's hunger than a rich man's smile. The word spread like smoke, unseen but choking. Soon whispers became assumptions. A few villagers began to eye Oba with doubt, their early curiosity hardening into caution. Meanwhile, Tay had already approached Okiki after the festival ended. Tai, respectfully, Sir, your daughter Ngozi speaks with wisdom. I would like to visit your family properly, if you permit. Okiki smiled warmly, but Neka's eyes narrowed slightly. Mothers see things fathers overlook. Neka, you speak well, young man, but words are cheap. Many promise, few deliver. If you return with honesty in your hands. Tay, bowing. That I will, mother. A man who fears truth fears his own shadow. Okeki clapped his back, already hopeful. Come again, son. Our door is small, but our welcome is wide. Ngozi lowered her gaze shyly, though her cheeks burned with secret joy. Not far away, Oba stood apart, watching the scene unfold. His chest tightened. He valued caution, calculation, and careful decisions, but he saw in Tay's openness a kind of power he did not possess. Does kindness disarm suspicion faster than wealth? He wondered. When he turned, he found Adana walking toward him, carrying a half-empty calabash of water. Their eyes locked again. Adana, coolly, So, the great stranger stands alone. Tell me, is solitude the crown of the billionaire? Oba did not flinch. Oba, solitude is the training of a hunter. The lion walks alone before it returns with meat. Adana, or the lion starves while the village eats together. The words struck like flint against stone. Oba's jaw tightened. For a moment he wanted to turn away, but instead he spoke carefully. Oba, you are quick with judgment, Adana. Adana, only because pride is loud even in silence. A silence heavier than the drums fell between them. But beneath her sharpness, Oba felt her honesty. Few dared speak to him this way. It stirred something he could not name. Still, the villagers around them caught only fragments, and in their ears, Cheek's lies grew taller. When the last torches dimmed, families returned to their compounds. The two strangers, Oba and Tay, were invited to stay in the chief's guest compound. Before they left, Oba paused and looked back. He saw Adana standing by her father's hut, arms crossed, head high. Her posture spoke more than words. I do not fear you. I do not envy you, but I will not bow to you either. It unsettled him. He was used to fear, envy, even forced respect. But defiance, honest, fearless defiance, was rare, and in that rarity, his interest rooted itself deeper. As the village settled, Chiki found Adana sitting near the fire with her younger siblings. He crouched low, his voice soft, dripping with false sincerity. Cheek, did you see how he looked at you? As if weighing you like cattle at the market. That is Oba. He has riches, yes, perhaps even billions, but he has no heart. Believe me, Adana, I once trusted him. I paid for it with everything I had. Adana frowned, her doubt thickening. Adana, if he is truly what you say, then I want nothing from him. Let him keep his wealth. A poor man with dignity is worth more than a billionaire without compassion. Chike smiled inwardly, satisfied. Chike, you are wise. You see through pride. Beware him, sister. Beware him. Adana nodded, her resolve hardening. Yet in a corner of her mind, she could not erase Oba's parable about the hunter and the lion. It sounded less like arrogance and more like confession. That night, as Oba lay awake in the guest compound, he thought of the girl who had spoken truth to him without trembling. He thought of Tay's effortless laughter and the warmth it had brought to the festival. He thought of Chike. Yes, he noticed the man's presence and did not trust his easy smile. Oba closed his eyes, whispering to himself, Oba, softly, this village will test me, and she will undo me. And thus, the arrival of strangers, supposed millionaires, suspected billionaires, had planted the first seeds of love, pride, lies, and destiny. Seeds that would one day ripen into a harvest far greater than anyone imagined. The days after the festival brought a quiet rhythm back to the village. Farmers rose with the sun, women pounded yam in wooden mortars, children carried water in clay pots balanced carefully on their heads. But behind this ordinary life, the arrival of Oba and Tay lingered like the taste of palm wine on the tongue. Sweet, sharp, impossible to forget. Tay had already begun visiting Okiki's compound, his laughter echoing across the yam ridges as he helped carry hoes or asked questions about the soil. The villagers adored him. Mothers whispered blessings, and even Neka, cautious as she was, admitted to herself that Tay's sincerity shone brighter than gold. But Oba was different. He kept to himself, wandering the outskirts of the village, speaking little, watching much. Where Tay's presence brought warmth, Oba's brought silence. Some villagers respected it. Others found it unsettling. Adana, for her part, avoided him, though she could not avoid the thoughts he stirred. It was during this uneasy peace that misfortune struck. One afternoon, under a sky heavy with rain clouds, Oba collapsed near the river path. He had been traveling between the chief's compound and the farmlands, inspecting the soil and the river's strength. Some said he pushed himself too hard, refusing food or rest. Others whispered that pride had caught up with him, pulling him down like a stone in water. Children were the first to see him. They ran back to the village, shouting, Child 1, the stranger, the tall one, he has fallen near the river. Child 2, come quick, he does not move. A small crowd gathered, but hesitation froze their feet. Some feared it was a trick, a test. Others remembered Cheek's whispers. He is proud, he despises us. No one wanted to be the one to step forward. It was Adana who finally came, carrying a calabash of water from the river. She saw Oba lying on the ground, his breathing shallow, his forehead damp with sweat. For a moment, she hesitated. Pride urged her to walk away, to let the arrogant stranger fend for himself. Something stronger rose inside her, compassion. She knelt beside him, pressing her hand to his forehead. Adana, softly, hot as fire. This is fever, the crowd murmured. Villager, in 1, leave him. He is not one of us. Villager, 2, did he not look down on us at the festival? Why waste time? Adana looked up sharply. Adana, shame on you. Does fever ask if a man is rich or poor? Does death ask if he is a billionaire or a farmer? He is a man, and he needs help. The villagers fell silent. With strength born of duty, Adana lifted Oba's head and gave him water from her calabash. He coughed weakly, his eyes fluttering open. For the first time, his gaze was not proud, not distant. It was vulnerable. Oba, hoarse whisper, why, do you help me? Adana, firmly, because kindness is not for sale. Even if you are a billionaire, even if you are nothing, a man deserves care. His eyes lingered on her face, but he was too weak to reply. Adana called two boys from the path to help her lift Oba. With their shoulders steady under his arms, they guided him toward Okiki's compound. Word traveled faster than feet. By the time they reached the gate, Neka was already waiting, worry and suspicion sharing space in her eyes. Neka, whose son is this? Why bring a stranger into our courtyard? Adana, mother, fever does not knock. It breaks doors. He fell near the river. If we send him away, we send our honor away. Okiki stepped from the shade, his gaze passing over Oba's face, then to Adana's. He nodded once, the kind of nod that decides a house's direction. Okiki, place him here. Bring the mat from my room. Neka, warm water. Adana, the neem leaves and bitter bark. If the stranger breathes among us, he breathes as a guest. Neka did not argue further. In a poor home, mercy is wealth. She fetched a clay bowl, crushed the leaves with a smooth stone, and stirred in dry ginger. Adana held Oba's head while Neka pressed the bitter brew to his lips. He swallowed with effort, coughed, and fell into the heavy sleep that sometimes follows fever's first wave. As evening grew soft, Ngozi returned from the market and gasped to find their courtyard changed. Ngozi, sister, what happened? Adana, he collapsed by the river. People watched, but fear is a bad doctor. We carried him home. Ngozi, gently, and your heart carried you first. She set down her basket and knelt beside the mat, studying Oba's face. Even in illness, a certain stillness clung to him, as if pride had not left, only folded its arms to rest. Ngozi's glance sharpened with womanly caution. Ngozi, is this the same man who spoke in Proverbs and watched the festival from a distance? Adana, the same. A man may be a billionaire by rumors and a beggar by fever. Help me, please. They worked like practiced hands, sisters who had learned care from scarcity. Adana cooled his skin with a wet cloth. Ngozi kept the bitter tea warm. When he stirred and murmured, Adana answered with a steady voice that gave him a shore to swim toward. Later, Tay appeared at the gate, breathless, having heard fragments from children who passed him on the road. Tay, where is he? They said Oba fell. Is it true? Okeki rose to greet him, offering the respect a father gives to a man who has honored his daughter with gentleness. Okeki, he is resting. Fever is a thief, but we are many in this house. It will not steal while we watch. Tay knelt at Oba's side, his cheerful face sobered. Tay, softly, brother, you who find strength in silence, borrow ours tonight. Oba did not answer. Sleep held him. Tay turned to Adana and Ngozi. With gratitude he did not bother to hide. Tay, thank you. Your kindness will never be forgotten. Adana, kindness is a debt we pay to ourselves. Tay, with feeling, then let me help you pay it. What do you need? They needed firewood split, and Tay's hands became axes. They needed water fetched, and Tay's steps became a rope between the well and the jar. In a house where every task cost sweat, his presence became coin. Neka watched from a distance, weighing everything. Adana's resolve, Ngozi's calm, Tay's readiness, Oba's helplessness. When a mother counts, she counts futures. Neka, quietly to Okeki. The cheerful one brings light, the quiet one brings questions. Okeki. Light shows the road, questions show the depth. We will need both if our daughters are to walk wisely. Night spread like indigo cloth across the sky. Crickets stitched the hours. The fever rose once, then broke, then rose again. Each time, Adana pressed the cloth to Oba's brow and whispered of faith her hands had learned in darker seasons. Adana, whispering, breathe, stranger. Do not let heat convince you it is a king. Near midnight, Oba's eyes opened, clearer than before. They searched the dim air, then found the figure bent over him. Oba, faint. You, Again, Adana, I am still Adana, and you are still alive. Be patient. Pride walks on long legs. Healing walks on feet like a child's. He tried to smile, but it looked like a memory of one. Oba, why do you speak to me as if I am both culprit and guest? Adana, because you are both. You came with a wealth of silence. We answered with a wealth of mercy. Let them be equals. For a moment, the old flint between them flashed, but the spark did not catch. Illness sands down edges that argument sharpens. Oba, after a pause, your father allowed this? Adana, he taught it. A house that refuses a sick man refuses its own soul. He absorbed the words like water. Something in his chest loosened. Gratitude is heavy until shared. Then it rests. Toward dawn, the fever finally bowed. Oba's breath settled into a steady rhythm. Neka exhaled a tension she had held behind her teeth. Neka, let him sleep. When the sun climbs, we will feed him light food. Tay touched Okeki's shoulder. Tay, your house has done what a palace sometimes forgets. May God remember your yam ridges. Okeki, smiling. May he remember your footsteps. They have worked like suns. The family drifted into brief, broken rest. Adana slept last, a corner of her wrapper tucked under the mat where Oba lay, as if some part of her had decided to anchor him to life. Morning arrived with the smell of smoke and millet porridge. When Oba woke again, his eyes were alert, his voice low but certain. Oba, I owe you a debt. Neka, matter of fact. Debts are for markets. In this house, we trade only in honor. Oba, turning to Adana, then let me honor the one who carried me from the river. Adana, honor the river that carried you to me first. It was closer. He almost laughed. Almost. The sound that escaped was more human than anything the village had yet heard from him. Okeki sat beside him, offering a small gourd of thin porridge. Okeki, eat slowly. Pride eats like a lion. Healing eats like a sparrow. Oba received the gourd with both hands, the gesture of a man who has remembered he is not a king here. He ate, and the food traveled through him like a truce. At the gate, a shadow shifted. Chiki had come early, curiosity dressed as concern. He peered in, measuring the stranger on the mat and the gratitude in Tay's posture. Envy rose in him like a tide. Chika, calling lightly, I heard a friend was sick. May I enter and bring my greetings? Neka's eyes narrowed a fraction. Neka, greetings are lighter than water and heavier than gossip. Which did you bring? Cheek, smiling broadly. Only goodwill, mother. He stepped in, knelt beside Oba, and put on a face that fit like an actor's mask. Cheek, ah, brother, how quickly life shows us our smallness. Heal well. The village needs every strong back. Oba's eyes cooled. He had not forgotten the man's slippery presence at the festival, but illness had humbled his appetite for confrontation. Oba, thank you. Chiki turned to Adana with a practiced sigh. Cheek, sister, your heart is a river, but beware those who drink without blessing the spring. Adana, evenly, a true drinker leaves the spring cleaner than he found it. The line pricked him. He masked the flinch with another grin. Cheek, wisdom suits you. I will return later with herbs I know. When he left, Tay exhaled, as if a draft had been stopped. Tay, quiet. That one walks with dust in his pockets. Wherever he sits, the wind coughs. Okeki chuckled, but Adana's face sobered. Suspicion and conscience pulled at the same rope inside her. She remembered Cheek's stories and set them beside the weight of Oba's sleeping gratitude. One was smoke, the other had become flesh. By afternoon, strength had returned enough for questions. Oba, to Okeki, Sir, tell me of your harvest. What price do traders pay for yam this season? Okeki. A small price for big labor. The road taxes grow taller while our yams grow smaller. Oba. And your seed store? Your tools? Okeki. Rye. We mend what can be mended and bless what cannot. Oba. If a new hoe could be forged, would you know the blacksmith? Okeki. I know the blacksmith, but the iron does not know me. It prefers richer hands. Oba's gaze drifted thoughtful. Tay watched him, knowing that behind such questions lived both calculation and genuine care. Ngozi brought a bowl of spiced broth and set it near Adana. Ngozi, for the patient. Oba, meeting her eyes. You are kind. Ngozi, kindness is our village currency. We spend it even when the pocket is empty. He nodded, then looked back to Adana. Oba, I misread this place. Adana, poverty is easy to misread. It speaks softly. Oba, then teach me the language. The request surprised her. Her first instinct was to meet it with a proverb sharp enough to keep distance, but the memory of him, helpless by the river, rose like a witness. Adana, language is learned by listening. Begin there. Through that day, he did. He listened while Okeki mapped the fields with words, while Neka weighed every cost aloud, while Tay told stories that held laughter like a net holds fish. He listened while Adana explained how the price of salt could change a week's meals, how a broken mortar could steal an hour of daylight from a woman's hands, how a child's cough sounded different when the clinic had run out of medicine. He learned that in a poor home, numbers are not lines on a ledger. They are the footprints of survival. When evening arrived, Oba asked for a small favor that startled everyone. Oba, may I pray here? In my father's house, when a stranger saves your breath, you offer it back to God first. Okeki gestured to the open sky. Okeki, the roof of heaven is large. Speak. Oba's words were brief, sincere, and, most telling, plural. Oba, soft prayer. Thank you for us. It was a small bridge, but bridges begin with planks. Before sleep came, he turned to Adana one more time. Oba, I do not know how to repay this. Adana, you do not repay air. You breathe it and become responsible for those who cannot. The sentence settled in him like a seed finding soil. That night, the village lay under a generous moon. In a rich man's city house, silence can be a wall. In a poor man's compound, silence can be a blanket. It covered them all, the anxious mother, the hopeful father, the gentle sister, the cheerful friend, the wounded stranger, and the woman whose kindness had just shifted the axis of many futures. And though no one spoke it aloud, a new rumor began its first quiet turn. Perhaps the farmer's daughter had nursed more than a stranger. Perhaps she had awakened a fortune that did not yet know its name, billionaire or otherwise. The third morning rose golden, streaks of sun cutting across the yam ridges. Oba, now stronger, sat on a low stool in the compound. His broad frame still carried traces of weakness, but his eyes had regained their depth. He watched the family move in their daily rhythm, the scrape of Ngozi's broom, the thunk of Okeki's hoe against wood, the soft murmur of Neka stirring millet. Adana entered carrying a clay pot of water. She set it down without looking at him, but Oba's voice, quieter than the day before, reached her. Oba, you have carried me twice now, from the river and through the night. Do you carry all strangers this way? Adana, without pausing. Kindness does not pick faces. If it did, it would no longer be kindness. Oba, but kindness costs. Adana, turning, meeting his eyes. And pride costs more. Which do you think ruins more families? Kindness or pride? The words landed like stones dropped in a still pool. Oba's silence was not defensive this time. It was reflective. Tay arrived with roasted maize, grinning as always. Tay, ah, the strong man lives again. Oba, you frighten me. I thought perhaps you wanted to join the ancestors early. Oba shook his head, faint amusement touching his lips. Oba, not yet. There are debts unpaid. He looked toward Adana as he spoke, and though the words were light, the weight was heavy. Ngozi joined them, carrying palm leaves for weaving. Tay immediately offered to help, fumbling with the leaves until Ngozi laughed, correcting him. Their laughter rippled like fresh water. Even Neka's stern face softened as she watched. But the balance of the compound shifted when Chiki returned that evening. He came bearing a bundle of herbs, his smile wide, his eyes calculating. Cheek, I bring medicine. Word travels that our guest grows strong. It would be tragic if the fever returned. Adana frowned, sensing the false note in his generosity. Adana, we have herbs enough, but thank you. Cheek leaned closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. Cheek, do not let his gratitude fool you. Oba is like the sun. It shines today, burns tomorrow. I once called him friend. I carry scars still. Adana stiffened. Confusion twisted in her chest. She had seen Oba's weakness, his humility in illness, his attempt to learn from her family. Yet Cheek's warnings echoed. Who was telling the truth? That night, as Oba sat under the mango tree, he addressed Adana directly. Oba, your silence tonight speaks more than your words. Have I offended you? Adana, hesitant. You carry secrets, Oba. A man with secrets can be dangerous. Oba, measured. And a man without them is untested. Which is worse? Adana, the worst is when secrets harm the innocent. Oba's face darkened. For a moment she thought he might rise in anger, but instead he sighed. A long, weary sound that seemed to come from years before. Oba, you see only half my story. One day you will see the whole. Adana crossed her arms, unwilling to yield. Adana, perhaps, or perhaps pride will bury it before truth is spoken. The tension hung in the night air like smoke. Within days, Oba recovered fully. The fever was gone, but something else remained. A bond invisible, forged in the quiet hours when Adana's hands had cooled his skin and her words had kept his spirit anchored. Tay prepared to travel back briefly to a nearby town, promising Ngozi he would return. His eyes lingered on her longer than custom allowed, and the promise in that gaze was louder than words. Oba, however, remained behind. He could not explain, even to himself, why he chose to stay in the village longer than planned. Perhaps it was gratitude. Perhaps it was curiosity. Or perhaps it was the stubborn pull of a farmer's daughter who had treated him not as a billionaire in disguise, but as a man on the edge of death. Yet pride does not vanish simply because kindness enters. Pride bends, but it also stiffens. And as Oba regained his strength, his silence began to return. His gratitude remained unspoken too long, his thoughts hidden behind his watchful eyes. For Adana, this silence reopened her doubts. Had she wasted her compassion on a man whose heart was stone? Or had she nursed a fortune disguised, a hidden billionaire whose pride would only wound her family in the end? The village gossiped. Some praised Adana, saying, "She will be blessed. Who knows? Perhaps she has healed a man who carries wealth enough to lift us all." Others muttered Cheek's warnings, painting Oba as a snake waiting for the right time to strike. Okeki dismissed the whispers. Okeki, a man's truth is not in his gossip. It is in his deeds. We will watch. We will wait. But Neka's heart was restless. Mothers dream dreams their children cannot see. In her sleep, she dreamed of her daughter standing between two roads, one leading to joy, the other to sorrow. At the end of both, wealth glittered like sunlight. She woke unsettled, whispering into the darkness. Neka, to herself, fortune is not always blessing. Sometimes it is burden. And so, the act of kindness that had begun at the river had grown roots in the soil of the family's life. Adana had shown mercy without knowing she had touched the destiny of a man whose fortune could change her world forever. But in Africa, every seed carries both harvest and thorn, and this seed, born of kindness, shadowed by pride, would grow into both love and heartbreak before it yielded its final fruit. The weeks after Oba's recovery carried both promise and unease. On one hand, Tay's visits to Okeke's compound grew more frequent. He helped in the fields, carried hoes with Ngozi, and laughed with the younger siblings as though he were already family. The villagers whispered that soon there would be a wedding, and perhaps fortune would finally shine on Okeke's house. But where Tay's openness sowed peace, Oba's silence bred suspicion. He spoke little, offered few smiles, and walked through the village as though measuring it against an unseen scale. For some, this restraint seemed dignified. For others, it smelled of arrogance. And in the cracks between those perceptions, Cheek poured his poison. He cornered young men near the palm wine stalls. Cheek, whispering, "Do you think Oba cares for this village? He counts your yams like a tax collector. Mark my words, he will one day buy your land with the same gold he hides under his silence." He spoke to mothers fetching firewood. "Cheek, have you not seen how he looks at your daughters? He will choose one, play with her heart, and leave her. Men like him are wolves in the skins of billionaires." And most dangerously, he leaned again toward Adana, fanning doubts already alive in her chest. "Chike," with sighs, "you saved him, sister. But have you noticed? Gratitude has not softened his pride. He is a man who believes kindness is his right, not his gift." Adana's arms folded tightly across her chest. She wanted to argue, to silence Cheek's constant murmurs. But the truth was, Oba had not once spoken openly of thanks. He remained guarded, his silence heavy even in her family's compound. One evening, Tay pulled Ngozi aside after a day of weeding. His voice carried the tremor of a man ready to open his heart. "Tay, Ngozi, when I first came here, I thought I would only rest a few days, but your voice has changed my path. My steps linger when they should move. My heart beats louder when it should be quiet." Ngozi looked down at her hands, rough from work but graceful nonetheless. "Ngozi, words are easy. Tomorrow you may leave with the sunrise." Tay shook his head earnestly. "Tay, no. Tomorrow I will return, and the day after, and the day after that. If your father permits, I will ask formally to walk this life with you." Her eyes lifted, shining with hope. For a brief moment, the world felt light, but Oba, watching from a distance, felt a different weight. He had seen the hardship of poverty. He knew the burden of raising daughters with little means. In his mind, he convinced himself he was protecting his friend. He believed Ngozi's beauty might not come with seriousness, that perhaps she sought escape more than love. Pride disguised itself as wisdom in his thoughts. That night, in the quiet of the guest house, Oba spoke. Oba to Tay, "Brother, I must counsel you. This family is kind, yes, but poor. Poverty demands much, and beauty alone does not repay. Do not bind yourself where the ground is shallow." Tay frowned, startled. Tay, "Oba, do you doubt her heart?" Oba, "I doubt circumstances. A marriage should stand on soil that feeds both families. This soil is dry." Tay was silent, his joy shaken. He trusted Oba's wisdom, yet his heart resisted. Still, doubt crept in like a shadow, and doubt is often louder than faith. Tay woke before dawn, his heart tugging in two directions, toward Ngozi and toward the counsel of a friend he had trusted through drought and flood. The sky was still a deep blue when he found Oba seated outside the guest house. Hands clasped, eyes turned to the faintest rim of light. Tay, quietly, "Brother, I could not sleep." Oba, "Sometimes the wise stay awake while the world dreams." Tay, "Or the fearful stay awake while courage yawns." A long pause stretched between them. Finally, Tay exhaled, the words falling like stones. Tay, "I will go to the next town for trade. Only a few days." Oba, "Go with care." Tay, searching Oba's face, "And with doubt?" Oba, "With caution." They embraced, but a thin crack had opened. When a friendship meets a crossroad, silence can be the deepest argument. By mid-morning, the village learned Tay had left for business. Okiki nodded politely, though confusion creased his brow. Neka's mouth tightened. Ngozi heard the news from a neighbor and felt the world tilt. Still, she braided her hair, set her wrapper, and kept working, as women do when their hearts have been asked to carry fire without a pot. Adana found her sister by the mortar, pounding yam in steady rhythm. Adana, gentle, Ngozi, Ngozi, without looking up. The pestle does not ask where the man went, it only asks the hand to keep moving. Adana, he said he would return. Ngozi, soft. Men speak like rain clouds. Some bring water. Some only cast shadows. She lifted the pestle again. Strength is a quiet thing. Cheek smelled the wound in the air and came smiling through the gate, as if sorrow were a feast to which he had been invited. Cheek, "Ah, sisters, I heard the laughing friend has flown. Wealthy men often leave softly. They step on grass so it will not accuse them." Adana, cold, "Leave, Chike." Chike, hands lifted. "Peace. I only came to say life has a way of showing us true colors. The billionaire's friend departs. The billionaire himself will soon follow." Ngozi, barely, "Do not speak of him." Chike, tilting his head, "But words are a poor man's shield." "Let me lend you mine." Adana, "A shield full of holes." He laughed, but the sound contained more teeth than joy. When he left, the compound felt cleaner, as if a draft had passed. Evening came with a red sky. Oba arrived at Okiki's compound, carrying a small satchel. He greeted the family with courtesy sharp as a blade. Okiki welcomed him. Neka measured him. Adana stood apart beneath the mango tree, arms folded. The same stance as the first time they had truly seen each other. Oba, "May I speak with you, Adana?" Adana, "If your words are seeds and not stones." He drew a breath that sounded like it had traveled a long road. Oba, "You saved my life. I have not said this well or enough, but gratitude is not all I carry. I have come to tell you something heavier." Her eyes were steady, unblinking. "Oba, I want to marry you." The word hung in the evening like a bell that had not decided whether to ring or crack. For a heartbeat the world stilled, the yam leaves, the goats, even the wind. Adana, slowly, "Marry, Oba, I speak plainly. I do not barter with poetry. I have considered the matter with care. Your mind is strong. Your tongue is honest. You would be a wife who keeps a man from folly." Adana, "And my poverty?" Oba, careful, then failing to hide himself. "A reality. Your family is good, but small in means. It would be difficult, but I have resources. I can lift you. I can make your life." He searched for a word that would not betray him. "Secure." The evening broke, the bell cracked, not rang. Adana, voice low, shaking with a fire that would not be denied. "Secure? Secure like a door that locks from the outside? Secure like a song caged in a throat?" He blinked, taken aback. "Adana, You speak of me as though I'm a roof that leaks, a wall that needs plaster. You speak of my father's house as though it is a wound you could dress with money. You want to marry me despite my life, as if my life were a disease. Oba, I meant honor. I meant to say that wealth could free you. Adana, wealth frees some, chains others. A billionaire can build a prison with gold bars and call it palace. His jaw tightened. Oba, you are proud, Adana, and you are blind. You would buy a wife with promises and call it love. You would change my name to your surname and call it kindness. You would hush my tongue and call it peace. The compound had quieted. Even Neka, emerging with a bowl, froze at the edge of the conversation. Okeke looked from one to the other, sensing a storm that had been long in coming. Oba's voice dropped, the old steel returning. Oba, you misjudge me. Adana, perhaps, or perhaps you have judged yourself already. You separated your friend from my sister with the same arithmetic, beauty against poverty, kindness against status, and now you bring that arithmetic to my door. His eyes flickered. He had not expected her to know. He had not considered how small a village makes the distance between any two stories. Oba, I advised Tay for his good. Adana, no, you advised him to protect your pride. Your pride does not want to kneel in a farmer's courtyard. It wants a path swept with respect and spiced with wealth. I am not your spice. Her words landed with the finality of a gavel. The silence afterward was not empty. It was crowded, with hurt, with truth, with 100 unspoken proverbs. Oba straightened. Oba, very well. If I have caused pain, I withdraw my words. Adana, take them far. Words like yours stain when they linger. He inclined his head, an old habit of power held in check, then turned and left the compound. When he reached the gate, Okeke's voice followed, quiet but firm. Okeke, young man. Oba paused. Okeke, if you misjudge my daughters, you injure yourself first. Wisdom does not fear a poor man's threshold. Oba bowed without looking back and walked into a dusk that swallowed him whole. Ngozi set the bowl down hard enough to splash. Ngozi, tears finally escaping. He sent Tay away. Adana, we will not be broken by a rich man's caution or a billionaire's pride. Neka gathered both daughters, one arm each. Neka, listen to me. The river is wide, but the calabash is small. You cross by balance. We will balance. That night, the village tongues were busy. Some said Adana had turned down a millionaire's proposal. Others said a billionaire had come seeking a wife and been sent away with empty hands. A few shook their heads and muttered that poor people grow foolish when fortune knocks. But those who knew Adana knew this. She had not rejected wealth. She had rejected the insult that sometimes travels with it. She had pushed away not a man, but a measure. Cheek, hearing the tale, smiled into the dark as if it were a mirror. Cheek, to himself, good. Let the proud burn. In ash, we are all the same. He stepped into the night, seeking more ears, more mouths, more tinder. Lies like dry grass love a spark. Oba, alone, reached the edge of the village and sat on a rock under a stripped acacia. He pressed his palms together until the bones ached. In his mind, a younger Oba argued with the present one. You were honest. You offered security. You spoke like a man who could build a house. Another voice answered, you spoke like a ledger. You asked a woman to live in your sums. The wind carried a scent of wood smoke and yam. He closed his eyes and found, to his surprise, not anger, but a new kind of hunger, the hunger to be read correctly, to be known without armor. The thought frightened him. Armor had kept him safe long before money had. He whispered into the darkness as if it were a confessor. Oba, softly, I have made a misstep. From the road beyond, a single bird called. It sounded like agreement. Back in the compound, Adana lay awake. Pride thrummed in her veins. She had defended her home, but sorrow curled beside it, stubborn and real. She had seen, for a flicker, the man behind Oba's stillness when fever had stripped him. That man had felt near. Tonight he felt far again, as if a door had closed, whose hinges could only be opened by a word not yet learned. She turned to the wall and prayed the old prayer of the poor, not for wealth, but for right paths. Adana, whispering, "If fortune is coming, let it learn humility before it enters." The moon climbed its silent ladder. Somewhere in the next town, Tay lay awake too, counting promises he still meant to keep. And outside the circle of their separate griefs, Shike walked and whispered and smiled, weaving a wider net, one that would soon pull at the youngest daughter and drag the whole family to the edge of ruin. The days that followed were heavy, like clouds swollen with rain but unwilling to break. Ngozi moved through the compound like a shadow of herself. She still swept the yard, pounded yam, and fetched water, but her laughter, the sound that once warmed the whole family, was missing. Children whispered that the smiling sister had lost her smile. One evening, as she sat by the fire peeling cassava, Adana knelt beside her. Adana, softly, "Sister, your silence is louder than drums." Ngozi, without looking up, "Some drums are cracked. No matter how you beat them, they cannot sing." Adana reached to still her hands. "Adana, Tay will return. I believe his steps remember this compound." Ngozi, "And if his steps remember, but his friend's counsel is louder, can a man serve two masters, his heart and another man's pride?" Adana had no answer. She only held her sister's hand, praying her grip could carry some of the weight. Meanwhile, Chike's tongue grew busier. He became a shadow in every corner of the village, weaving words like a spider spins web. Cheek, to the palm wine stall. "Did you hear? The farmer's daughter scorned a billionaire's proposal. Who does that? Pride has poisoned her." Cheek, to a group of women at the river. "The stranger Oba, he is not only proud, he is dangerous. He once ruined me, and he will ruin others. Do not trust him with your daughters." Cheek, to a group of young men. "Mark my words, billionaires do not bleed gratitude. They bleed arrogance. One day you will see his true colors." Every whisper fed suspicion. Some villagers admired Adana for her boldness. "She will not sell herself for gold," they said. Others called her foolish. Who refuses a billionaire? Fortune does not knock twice. Even in her own home, the tension simmered. Nneka worried in silence, fearing that both daughters' futures were slipping through their fingers like sand. Nneka, to Okeke, "A poor family cannot afford too much pride. If the girls turn away suitors with wealth, what remains for them? Kindness cannot buy salt. Wisdom cannot patch roofs." Okeke, calmly, "Better a roof that leaks than a home that stinks of dishonor. Wealth without respect is a curse." But even he wondered, late at night, if perhaps their family had stumbled past fortune's doorway without entering. Oba, for his part, withdrew. His visits grew rare, his words fewer. He felt torn, ashamed by Adana's rejection, yet unwilling to let go of the strange fire she had kindled in him. He told himself he had been misunderstood, that his intentions were honorable, but each time he remembered her words, "You speak of my life as if it were a disease." A knife twisted inside. He avoided her, thinking space would heal. But space only gave Sheik more room to weave lies. Tay remained absent, his silence deepening Ngozi's wound. Though he wrote a letter saying he would return soon, it never reached her hands. Cheek intercepted it, pocketing the folded hope before it could arrive. Cheek, to himself, smirking, let despair grow. In despair, people are easier to catch. As weeks turned into moons, the village began to change its story. At first, Oba was the proud stranger. Then he became the rejected suitor. Now, whispered by Cheek's tongue, he was painted as a threat. When children saw him walking the path, they hushed. Women lowered their voices when he passed. Men nodded, but with less warmth than before. Oba noticed. He was no fool. But instead of defending himself, he wrapped the cloak of silence tighter. Oba, to himself, let them think what they will. Fortune does not need applause. Time will tell the truth. Yet pride and silence are poor defenders against lies. One evening, Adana sat with her younger sister Ifunanya, who hummed a tune while weaving grass into mats. Ifunanya, teasing, "Sister, when will you marry? The boys at the festival said you cut down a billionaire with your tongue." Adana, sighing, "Marriage is not a market stall, little one, and billionaires are not gods. A man's worth is in his heart, not his pocket." Ifunanya, innocently, "But sometimes pockets carry hearts." Adana laughed despite herself, pulling her sister close. But in the shadows beyond the firelight, Chike watched. His eyes lingered on Ifunanya in a way that made the air feel wrong. A dangerous thought was blooming in his mind, a thought that would soon bring ruin. And so, pride had broken one bond, lies had poisoned another, and heartbreak spread like cracks in dry earth. The act of kindness that had once united lives was now tangled in webs of pride, suspicion, and deceit. The village did not yet know it, but a scandal was on the horizon, one that would test not just Adana's courage, but the honor of her entire family. The rains returned, heavy and insistent, drumming against the roofs, flooding narrow paths, and soaking the yam ridges until the soil sighed with relief. For weeks, the village moved in a rhythm of mud and thunder, and people spoke less of strangers and more of crops. Yet beneath the roar of the storm, tension lingered like smoke from a fire not fully quenched. Adana thought often of the proposal she had rejected. Her pride stood tall. She knew she had spoken truth. But her heart carried weight. At night, lying on her raffia mat, she remembered Oba's fevered gratitude, his whispered prayer, his request to learn the language of poverty. Could that have been the same man who later spoke of lifting her life, as though she were a burden? Her confusion grew until it pressed against her chest. She would mutter to herself while sweeping, "Adana," to herself. A billionaire can afford fine words, but can he afford humility? Can wealth bend without breaking? She shook her head and told herself not to think of him. But thoughts have wings stronger than will. Meanwhile, Oba's silence had deepened into exile. He had not returned to Okiki's compound since the night of his proposal. He spent his days walking the hills beyond the village, his nights staring at the fire in the chief's guest house. Pride kept him away. Longing pulled him back. The battle inside him was as loud as the rains outside. At last, Oba chose another weapon, words on paper. One night, he sat by a flickering oil lamp and wrote a letter. His handwriting was strong, precise, each word chosen like a stone in a foundation. Oba's letter, excerpt, "Adana, you believe me proud. Perhaps I am. But pride has many fathers. Loss, disappointment, betrayal. I carry all three. You judge me by my silence, but silence has been my only armor. I have spoken poorly, forgive me. I did not mean to weigh your family as if they were sacks of yam. I meant to measure my own unworthiness. You think I despise poverty? I do not. I fear it, not for myself, but for those I love. My caution forte was not to wound your sister, but to shield my friend from a pain I thought he could not bear. If I was wrong, then my caution was pride dressed as wisdom. You also trust the tongue of cheek. I must tell you, he is not as he seems. He once betrayed my household. He pursued my younger sister with lies, hoping to steal her inheritance. When I uncovered his deceit, I cast him out. He carries that wound like a badge, and now he poisons my name with it. Beware him, Adana. His smile is not bread. It is ash. I do not ask you to change your mind. I only ask you to see me whole, not as a billionaire or a stranger, not as a proud man or a beggar, but as a man with flaws and truths alike. One day, if God permits, you will know my fortune, not in gold first, but in faithfulness. Until then, judge me not only by what you heard, but by what you saw when fever stripped me. Oba. The next morning, a boy delivered the folded letter to Okiki's compound. Adana accepted it with suspicion, breaking the seal with fingers that trembled despite her resolve. She read it once quickly, then again slowly, each sentence carving a path through her doubts. When she finished, she pressed the paper to her lap. Her breath caught between anger and understanding. Adana, to herself, whispering, "If half of this is true, then I have misjudged. If half is false, then I am a fool." Ngozi noticed the letter and asked softly, "Ngozi, who writes to you, sister?" Adana, hesitant, "A man who says he is not what we think. A man who claims Chike is wolf, not lamb." Ngozi's brows furrowed. "Ngozi, do you believe him?" Adana stared into the fire, uncertain. "Adana, belief is a basket with holes. It leaks until truth fills it." Adana folded Oba's letter again and again until the paper became a small square of questions. She tucked it into her wrapper and went about the morning chores, but every task seemed to echo a line she had read. "Silence has been my armor. Beware, Chike. Judge me by what you saw when fever stripped me." The pestle rose and fell. The broom brushed the yard. The water sloshed in the clay pot. Yet beneath each rhythm, her mind argued with itself. Adana, to herself, if a rich man admits fault, does it make him humble or clever? If a billionaire speaks softly, does it make him kind or only careful? By midday, she could bear the buzzing in her head no longer. She slipped the letter into a gourd and went to find Elder Madhu, whose counsel traveled farther than rumor and returned cleaner. She found him under the baobab, mending a fishing net. "Adana, father of the village, I have a thorn I cannot see." Elder Madhu, smiling, "Then it is in the heart. Show me the foot. I will pull it. Show me the heart. I will only point." She offered the gourd. He removed the folded letter and read it slowly, lips moving, eyes steady. When he finished, he tied the net's last knot before speaking. "Elder Madhu, a proud man who confesses is like dry earth that accepts rain, but one letter is not a season. Let the clouds gather again." "Adana, he warns me about Chike." "Elder Madhu, warnings are drums. Truth is the dancer. Watch the feet, not the noise." She thanked him and left with more patience than she'd brought. On her way home, a small procession passed, 2 ox carts stacked with sacks and iron tools. The chief steward walked alongside, directing boys to the granary. Adana paused. "Adana, what is this bounty?" Steward, proud, "Seed yams for the poorest homes. New hose for those who work with broken iron. Medicine for the clinic, Adana. From whom? The steward glanced left and right, lowering his voice as if secrecy increased the gift. Steward, from a friend of the village who asked for no name. Her eyes narrowed. Anonymous generosity is either pure water or a river that hides its source. She remembered Oba's questions about seed and iron, his quiet visit to the steward on festival night. Adana, carefully, and the friend. Was he tall, silent, with eyes like someone weighing a storm? The steward hid a smile that refused to be hidden. Steward, sister, the village has many tall men. She let him keep his riddle. But as she walked on, the carts rattled in her mind like answers joining themselves. By the time she reached the market, the air already trembled with new talk. Spice seller. They say a city investor has sent money, maybe a millionaire. Cloth seller. Millionaire? My husband's cousin swears he saw the man's convoy once. Trucks for cocoa, cattle herds that drink whole ponds. That is a billionaire's hand, not a small trader's. Palm wine brewer. Whatever his pocket, he remembers the poor. Blessed be the stranger who brings medicine when coughs are long. Adana listened without letting the words choose for her. Charity can be a veil for pride or a seed planted without witness. She would not let rumor hand her a conclusion. She turned a corner and almost collided with Cheeky. He caught himself, then smiled too quickly. Chike. Ah, sister, the market tells me you walk with a lighter step. Has the proud stranger left finally? Adana. I do not measure my footsteps by another man's shadow. He laughed. Chike. Good, because his shadow grows long. Today the chief steward received gifts, seed, tools, medicine. The rich do such things to buy a village. A billionaire can drink gratitude like palm wine. Adana, watching him. You know much about his ways. Cheek. I knew him once. Adana. Yes. You told me he wronged you. Cheek. Hand to chest. He destroyed my prospects. He ruined my marriage. Adana. Your marriage? Cheek. Quick. My betrothal. To a woman of good family. He spread lies. Took the inheritance. Adana. Sharply. Whose inheritance? You have spoken of money before, but not of a woman's inheritance. Chike blinked. One beat too long. Cheek, recovering. Does it matter? The man steals where he can. Adana, names matter. Truth has a way of carrying names. He licked his lips, then tried charm. Cheek, sister, you look worried. Cast that man from your thoughts. His heart is an iron gate. Adana, and yet you cannot stop knocking on it. For the first time, his smile faltered. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Adana, you warned me against him the day he collapsed. You arrived the moment he woke. You knew to speak of inheritance before anyone else did. Tell me, Chika, how many truths must bend before your story stands? His nostrils flared. He forced a laugh that sounded like a cough. Cheek, believe what you will. When the proud fall, I will not be beneath them. He turned away, but the retreat betrayed him more than any word could. Adana watched him go with a new calm. Doubt had shifted its balance. On the walk home, she found Ngozi sitting by the path, gathering wild basil. Ngozi, the clinic posted a notice. They have fever medicine again. I will take some to Mama Ifeoma's child. Adana, soft, do that. And, Tay? Ngozi's eyes flicked toward the road that leads to the next town. Hope and caution divided her gaze. Ngozi, no word, but the wind has a sound I remember. Adana hesitated, then touched her arm. Adana, if he does not come, we will still be whole. Ngozi, a small smile. Wholeness has many shapes. They walked the rest of the way in the easy silence only sisters wear comfortably. That evening, Okiki returned from the chief's compound with news. Okiki, the steward says a benefactor paid the clinic's debts and bought iron for the smith. He would not give a name, but he looked at me when he said benefactor, as if expecting thanks I did not owe. Naka, thank the gift, not the giver. Some gifts try to buy your mouth. Okiki, to Adana, daughter, what does your spirit say? She weighed her answer. Adana, my spirit says charity without noise is a clean river. But a clean river can still hide a deep current. I will not drink with my eyes closed. Late that night, she lit a small lamp and unfolded Oba's letter once more. The words about Chiki now glinted differently, like a blade she finally recognized. She picked up a piece of charcoal and began to write a reply on palm leaf paper, then stopped. Words climbed to the edge of her tongue and refused to jump. Adana, whispering, not yet. Let tomorrow speak. She tucked the letter away and stepped outside. The moon had risen thin as a promise. Across the fields, she could see the faint glow from the guest house, where Oba sometimes sat awake. It was a strange comfort, the knowledge that another restless heart shared the same night. In the quiet, she prayed, not for wealth, not for a billionaire's hand, but for straight paths. The next day offered one. She went to the clinic to help distribute the new medicines. The matron beamed. Matron, God bless the donor. Fever will lose more battles now. Adana, do you know who gave? Matron, shaking her head. No name. But the chief steward said the man asked only this, serve the poorest first. Adana's throat tightened. She remembered Oba saying in her courtyard, may I pray here? And thank you for us. She remembered him asking to learn the language of poverty and listening while she taught it. She remembered his clumsy, arrogant proposal and the letter where he named his fault. A man can be two things at once, the wound and the balm. On her way out of the clinic, she met the blacksmith, hands black with work, eyes bright with delight. Blacksmith, see this new iron? It sings under the hammer. Whoever paid for it knows the price of a broken tool. Adana, quietly, or knows what it costs a woman when the mortar splits. He laughed. Blacksmith, sister, you speak like someone who has counted hours. She smiled and kept walking. Near the market gate, Cheke appeared again, this time with a swagger he had not earned. Chike, did you hear? Our mysterious benefactor buys glory with iron and pills. Tell me, when a billionaire throws crumbs, should a village kneel? Adana, cool. We should eat and stand. Cheek, stand against him. Your story will teach other girls to resist golden cages. Be loud. Adana, I will be precise. Loudness is for men who sell smoke. His eyes glittered. He leaned closer, voice low and poisonous. Cheek, ask yourself why he writes to you, not to the chief. Ask why he hides. A clean hand does not fear daylight. Adana, a clean hand does not fear daylight, and a bitter tongue does not taste honesty. For the second time in 2 days, she watched him lose his smile. He left with a mutter. She did not chase it. That evening, a child from the next town arrived with a small parcel for Okiki, wrapped in cloth, tied with string. Inside lay a new whetstone, a note, and a copper coin. For the farmer who aligns the earth, from a traveler who misread the sky. No signature, no flourish, just a whetstone that would return an old hoe to purpose. Okiki turned the coin in his palm, then handed it to Adana without a word. She read the note, then lifted her eyes to her father's. Okiki, gently. Sometimes apologies buy too much. Sometimes they buy exactly what is needed. Adana, after a long breath, I will answer his letter. She didn't sleep until she did. Her reply was spare, measured, careful as a seam. Oba, I have read your words. I have also watched your deeds. Both accuse you, both defend you. I do not trust Chike. I do not yet trust you, but I will listen. If you would teach me your truth, let it be by actions that are not for sale. Do not send gifts to buy our mouths. Send justice where it is due, to those who cannot repay you. Adana. She sealed it and gave it to a boy she trusted. When dawn broke, the boy ran toward the guest house with the letter like a spark carried to tinder. Somewhere beyond the mango groves, a man who had armored himself in silence would open an envelope and find, not surrender, but a road. Oba sat alone in the guest house when the boy arrived with Adana's reply. He took the folded palm leaf paper with both hands, dismissing the boy with a coin. For a long moment he only held it, as if afraid the contents might shatter what little bridge remained between him and Adana. Finally he opened it. Her words were sharp, yet steady. Not surrender, not rejection. Something in between. I do not trust Cheek. I do not yet trust you, but I will listen. His lips curved, faint and real. He read the letter 3 more times, then folded it carefully. For a man who could command caravans of cattle, manage cocoa plantations, and negotiate with city millionaires, this single page carried more weight than any ledger. Oba, to himself, quietly, she asks for actions. Then actions she will have. The next days unfolded with quiet transformations. Oba began to move differently in the village. He no longer lingered on the edges. He joined. At the riverbank, he helped women carry heavy water pots up the slope, saying nothing but bowing his head in thanks when they allowed him. At the market, he paid double for baskets of yam and told the traders to give the difference to widows. At the clinic, he arrived unannounced with a sack of dried fish from his stores, whispering only, Oba, for the children who need protein with their medicine. The matron blessed him, but he walked away before others could gather. Adana watched all this from a distance. Some acts reached her ears through gossip, others she witnessed herself. Each time, her heart shifted slightly. Adana, to Ngozi one evening, a proud man spends on himself. A just man spends where no one thanks him. Ngozi, softly, then perhaps he is becoming just. Adana shook her head, unwilling to declare too soon. But lies cannot walk forever without tripping. One afternoon, Chike sat among men at the palm wine stall, boasting as he often did. He spun his usual tale. Oba had ruined him, stolen his inheritance, destroyed his future. But this time, Elder Madhu happened to pass, pausing to rest his staff. Elder Madhu, you say Oba stole your inheritance. Which inheritance was that? Chike, confidently, a wealthy family's daughter promised to me. Elder Madhu, narrowing his eyes, which daughter? Chike, fumbling, a city girl, from far away. You would not know her. The elder tilted his head, his gaze sharp as a spear. Elder Madhu, strange then that I recall you begging coins not 3 seasons ago, claiming no family would take you. If Oba ruined you, he must have done so before you ruined yourself. The stall went quiet. Men looked at one another. Cheek's charm faltered. He forced a laugh, but it broke too quickly. Cheek, elders misremember. Age blunts truth. Elder Madhu, firmly, age sharpens truth. It is youth that dulls it. He walked on, but the silence he left was heavier than a shout. By sunset, the story spread. Some still clung to Cheek's side. Maybe the elder confused him. Others began to turn their backs when he approached. For the first time, his smile met suspicion instead of trust. Meanwhile, the steward announced another anonymous donation. 12 grinding stones for widows whose mortars had cracked. Again, no name was given, but many whispered the benefactor's initials under their breath. Oba. One evening, Adana and her father sat outside beneath the mango tree. Okeki. Daughter, what do you see now? Adana. I see two men, one who spends words to protect himself, another who spends silence to hide lies. The one I called proud may yet be a just man. The one I called wronged may yet be the wolf. Okeki nodded slowly. Okeki, truth takes time to ripen. You have waited well. The next morning, Oba himself came to Okeki's compound, not with pomp, not with gifts, but with empty hands. He bowed respectfully. Oba, sir, I do not come to ask for your daughter's hand again. I come to thank your house for saving me. If not for Adana, I would have joined the ancestors. If not for your hospitality, I would have been a burden to strangers. I will not forget it. Okeki placed a hand on his shoulder. Okeki, then honor my house not with gifts, but with truth. Oba met his eyes. Oba, you have it. Adana, standing near the doorway, heard the words. She studied his face, calm, humbled, still proud in posture, but different in spirit. And though she did not speak, a seed of trust sprouted quietly within her, watered by deeds rather than promises. But shadows lengthen even as light grows. Chike, cornered by suspicion, grew desperate. He began to linger near the youngest daughter, Efunanya, his smile sharper, his words sweeter. Where others saw a liar unraveling, she, young, impressionable, saw charm. The stage was being set for a scandal that would shake not just the family, but the entire village. The dry season arrived with dust that clung to every leaf and roof. The rains had gone, and the earth cracked like tired skin. Yet the greatest crack that season would not split the ground, but a family's honor. Efunanya, the youngest of Okeki's daughters, was barely 16 reigns old. She was spirited, quick to laugh, eager to taste life beyond the yam ridges. Unlike Adana, whose eyes always weighed truth, or Ngozi, whose heart beat gently, Efunanya's steps ran ahead of her thoughts. It was this restlessness that Chika, desperate and cornered, seized upon. He began by waiting at the river, offering to carry her pot. Chika, the road is long, little sister. Let a man's arms share the weight. Efunanya, giggling. It is not so heavy. Cheek, smiling. Still, beauty should not bend her back for water. She blushed. No one had called her beautiful with such intensity before. Day by day, he fed her words, sweet as honey, hollow as reeds. Chike, your sisters think only of wisdom and duty, but you are meant for more. Why should you live in poverty when fortune is near? Do you know who I am? I was once close to becoming a millionaire. The city knows my name. Efunanya's eyes widened. Poverty had taught her the worth of wealth without ever letting her touch it. Efunanya, whispering, truly. Cheek, nodding solemnly, truly. And if a man like me takes a wife, he will rise again. Together, we can stand above this dust. Within weeks, the whispers began. Villagers saw Efunanya walking too often in Chiki's shadow, her laughter too free, her steps too light beside his. Some shook their heads. Others said nothing. Youth is blind until blindness burns. Adana noticed first. One evening, as Efunanya returned with her pot suspiciously late, Adana confronted her. Adana, where were you? Efunanya, defensive. Fetching water. Adana, the water has been home long before you. Who kept you? Efunanya, flustered. Why must you always question me? You are not my mother. Her sharpness startled even herself. She fled into the hut, leaving Adana troubled. That night, she told Ngozi, Adana, our sister walks in smoke. If she is not careful, fire will follow. Ngozi, worried. Cheek's eyes are never honest. We must watch. But watchfulness sometimes lags behind temptation. Tired. It happened quickly. One morning, Ifunanya was gone. By the time the family realized, villagers were already whispering. Villager 1, the youngest daughter of Okiki has run away, with Cheek. Villager 2, shame, a girl of her age, without bride price, without blessing. Villager 3, the family is ruined. No man will marry into their house now. The news spread like fire through dry grass. Women covered their mouths in shock. Men shook their heads with pity and disdain. Neka collapsed onto her mat, wailing. Neka, my child, my name, all is finished. Okeki sat in silence, grief carved deep into his face. Okeki, hoarse. Honor is harder to rebuild than a broken roof. What shall we do? Adana felt the weight like a stone crushing her chest. She had warned her sister, but not loudly enough. Adana, to herself, Ifunanya, why did you trust a snake? Ngozi wept quietly, her heart heavy not only for her sister, but for the shame that now wrapped around all of them like a curse. The scandal reached Oba and Tay within hours. Tay, recently returned from his trading journey, came rushing to the compound. Tay, urgent. Is it true? Shaik has taken your sister? Adana could barely meet his eyes. Adana. Yes. And with her, he has taken our family's name. Oba followed silently, his face unreadable. For a long time, he said nothing, watching the despair in the courtyard. Finally, he spoke. Oba, firmly. Then we must bring her back. The family stared at him. Neka, bitter. Bring her back? And with what? Cheek will not return her for free. He will demand money, gifts, favors. Where shall we find it? We are poor farmers. Our yams cannot ransom a daughter. Oba's gaze did not waver. Oba, leave Cheek to me. Adana looked at him sharply, suspicion and hope fighting within her. Adana, why? Why would you do this for us? His eyes met hers, steady as stone. Oba, because kindness saved me when I had nothing. Now it is my turn to pay a debt. Oba did not waste the daylight. With Tay beside him, he walked straight to the chief's compound and requested the presence of the chief's steward and 2 village guards. His tone carried neither panic nor pride. It carried decision. Oba, we go now. Chaik will not anchor his lies with a child. Steward, uneasy. He has slipped between villages before. He is smoke. Oba, then we bring rain. They moved along the red road where dust rose like ghosts. Oba questioned children who had seen a pair pass at dawn. One tall man with a traveling bag, one girl with fear buried under stubbornness. At the fork where bush paths split, Oba crouched and studied the ground. He pointed without drama. Oba, east, toward the old trader's rest. He will want distance before he bargains. Tay watched him with a growing respect that had nothing to do with money. Tay, low, when you are quiet, you are measuring. When you speak, you are sure. Oba, silence is the weight before the spear flies. They reached the abandoned rest compound by late afternoon. Goats had nibbled the weeds low, and a cracked water jar sat by the doorway like an accusation. From within came a murmur. Cheek's voice shaped into sweetness, Ifunanya's voice brittle with fear. Oba signaled the guards to hold. He stepped to the doorway and spoke without entering. Oba, even. Chaik, you have taken what is not yours. A heartbeat of silence. Then Cheek appeared. Smile pasted on like cheap paint. Cheek, ah? The proud billionaire plays hero. I have taken a bride, not a prisoner. Oba, a bride without a family's blessing is a theft with beads. Chaik, shrugging. Blessings can be bought, bride price can be paid. The girl agrees. Ifunanya, from inside small. I don't know. Oba did not raise his voice. Oba, you will return her, now. Cheek's eyes flickered to the guards, then to Tay, then back to Oba's face, calm as a lake, unblinking. Chike, spiteful. And if I refuse, will the billionaire count coins at my door? You think your hidden fortune can buy every road? Oba stepped closer, stopping at the threshold, his shadow on Cheek's feet. Oba, I do not buy roads. I build them. This one leads home. Chike, sneering. Then pay. Pay the bride price. Pay the sorrow fee. Pay the silence of my tongue when I say the girl has already shared my mat. Ifunanya sobbed at that lie. Tay swore under his breath. Oba did not flinch. He reached into his satchel and removed a wrapped ledger and a leather pouch. He handed the ledger to the steward. Oba, witness and record. Not a bribe. A settlement to prevent a girl's name from being ground into the dust by a liar's heel. He opened the pouch. Inside lay cowries, coins, and a sealed paper with the chief's emblem. Chike's eyes widened. Greed sharpened his smile into a hook? Chike, so the billionaire's pocket finally speaks. Oba, flat. Not my pocket. The village fund I endowed this morning, dispersed through the chief, witnessed by the steward. This payment is not to you. It is to the law of restitution. You will receive nothing in your hand but handcuffs if you persist. The steward read the seal and nodded, startled. Steward, it is legitimate. A public fund for the protection of daughters and widows. The chief stamped it before noon. Chike's mouth opened, then closed. His bluff found no chair to sit on. Chike, snarling, you think paper can clean shame? I will shout that she was willing. I will shout that you paid to hide it. Oba, shout into the wind. The fund is public. The records are clean. What will remain is your attempt to extort a child's family. He glanced past Cheek into the dim room. Oba, softening. Ifunanya, daughter of Okeki, will you come? There was a rustle. Then the girl stepped forward, eyes swollen, face streaked with salt and dust. She paused, looking between the men, one a tower made of false promises, the other a wall she had once mistrusted. She chose. Ifunanya, whispering, I want to go home. Tay reached for her hand but waited for her nod before touching her. A small act of respect that mattered. Chike lunged as if to seize her arm. The guards moved quicker. Hands pinned his wrists. The air filled with the scuffle's brief thunder. Guard, enough! Cheek spat dust and rage. Cheek, you think you have won, billionaire? I will talk. I will burn your name in every mouth. Oba regarded him coolly. Oba, a name is not tender when it is wet with truth. He turned to the steward. Oba, proceed. The steward recited, voice clear, by order of the village authority and in witness of the chief steward, the guards, and the complainants, the girl returns to her father's house. The accused is warned against further contact. Any claim must be brought before council. No private bargaining. The Daughters and Widows Fund will cover formal costs so the poor are not priced out of justice. Even in anger, that last sentence stilled Cheek. Justice that could not be bought was a wall too tall for his scaling. Ifunanya stepped out fully then, barefoot, shaking, free. Oba inclined his head, not as savior, but as a man acknowledging another's hard choice. Oba, quiet. Courage. They walked back as the sun bled into orange. Word traveled ahead of them. By the time they reached the village, people lined the path like fence posts, curious, relieved, chastened. Some whispered, it's true, the stranger is a millionaire, maybe a billionaire. Others said, whatever his fortune, he used it to protect, not to purchase. At Okiki's gate, Neka fell to her knees and wept into her wrapper. Ifunanya collapsed into her mother's arms, apologies tumbling over themselves. Ifunanya, Mama, forgive me. I was foolish. I believed a man because he called me beautiful. Neka, through tears, beauty is not bread. Child, you cannot eat it. Okiki faced Oba and Te. His voice shook with dignity. Okiki, my house owes you life, not money, life. Te, let the house owe only truth. Oba looked at Adana then. She stood a step back, eyes wet, chin high. There was no triumph in her face, only relief, and a dawning recognition that the man before her had chosen the costly road. Adana, softly, you moved like rain. Oba, I moved like a debtor. Kindness lent me breath. Today I paid interest. He turned, as if to leave without collecting thanks, but Okiki called after him. Okiki, stay. Eat with us. Oba, shaking his head. Let the family close its circle first. I will come when the pot cools. He left with the guards to file the council notice and deposit the remaining funds. As he walked, the murmurs around him shifted shape. Villager 1, he created a fund for widows and daughters. Villager 2, a billionaire's wealth burns when it is hoarded. This one waters when it is poured. Villager 3, perhaps he hides his fortune. Perhaps he hides his heart. But today, he did not hide his honor. Back inside the compound, Ifunanya clung to Adana. Ifunanya, sobbing, Sister, I am sorry. I stained our name. Adana, holding her, names can be washed. Actions are the soap. Neka lit a lamp as dusk settled. Neka, from today, we speak of gates and thresholds. No girl in this house will pass a gate without a sister's shadow. They all agreed. The rule was born from pain and stitched with love. Tay lingered near the doorway, eyes finding Ngozi. He did not reach for her. He reached for words. Tay, quiet. I left when I should have stayed. If the door is not closed, I will try to earn my way back through it. Ngozi's answer was a small, brave nod. Permission, not promise. Outside, the night filled with crickets. Inside, the family exhaled for the first time since morning. But over the wall, Cheek's rage simmered, searching for a new path. And in the guest house, Oba sat alone with the knowledge that he had spent more than coin. He had spent a piece of his guarded solitude. He whispered to the empty room, to the ancestors, to the God who hears through rafters. Oba, prayer, let my wealth be a roof, not a wall. The night accepted the prayer and kept its answer for morning. The next morning, the village council gathered beneath the Iroko tree. The chief, his elders, and the steward sat in a half circle, staffs planted firmly in the dust. Villagers crowded behind, their murmur a restless drumbeat. Chike was brought forward by the guards, his wrapper torn, his eyes darting like a trapped lizard. Ifunanya sat with her parents, her face pale but steady, Adana's arm firm around her shoulders. The steward stood and spoke clearly. Steward, this man, Cheek, enticed the daughter of Okiki without family consent. He attempted to extort restitution. He was stopped only because of intervention and the newly established Daughters and Widows Fund, endowed by the stranger Oba. A ripple went through the crowd. The words fund and endowed struck like lightning. Villager 1, whispering, endowed? That is no small coin. Villager 2, only a millionaire could do such a thing. Villager 3, no, this is the hand of a billionaire. Who else makes councils bow? The chief raised his staff for silence. Chief, Chike, you are accused of dishonor. What do you say? Chike's smile flickered like a dying flame. Chike, pleading, I love the girl. She came willingly. It was Oba who twisted the tale, using his wealth to make me a villain, the council muttered. Elder Madhu leaned forward, eyes sharp. Elder Madhu, you say she came willingly, but the girl herself wept when offered release. You say Oba used wealth, yet it was you who demanded payment. Tell us, whose hand is dirtier? Cheek stammered, words falling apart like brittle leaves. Cheek, he is not what he seems. He hides riches, land, power. Elder Madhu cutting him off. And you hide lies. Enough. The chief struck his staff. Chief, by the council's judgment, Chike is banished for 3 seasons. If he returns without repentance, he will be whipped and chained. Let it be known that deceit is poison, and this village will not drink it. The crowd erupted, some gasps, some applause, some sighs of relief. Cheek spat in the dust, glaring at Oba with venom. Cheek, snarling, your billionaire fortune cannot buy you honor. One day, they will see the pride in your heart. The guards dragged him away, his curses scattering like seeds no one intended to water. When silence returned, Elder Madhu turned to Oba. Elder Madhu, and you, son, you speak little, but your deeds have shouted. You saved a child's honor with coin. You created a fund no poor man could dream of. Tell us the truth. Who are you? The villagers leaned forward, eager, breathless. Oba hesitated, then bowed his head slightly. Oba, I am Oba Adeyemi, son of a cocoa magnate. I own fields that stretch beyond the horizon, herds that drink from rivers, and warehouses in the city where merchants count their gain by my measures. Yes, I am a billionaire. Gasps rippled like wind in tall grass. Some fell to their knees. Others clapped hands over mouths. The truth was heavier than rumor, yet it felt almost inevitable. Villager, awed, a billionaire in our village, another, and he sat with us, ate with us, walked our paths. But Oba raised his hand for quiet. Oba, do not measure me by my coin alone. If I had not been sick, you would not have seen me weak. If Adana had not cared for me, I would not have lived. Her kindness gave me breath when my wealth could not. That is the greater fortune. All eyes turned to Adana. She felt heat rise in her cheeks, but her gaze did not waver. That evening, when the crowd had dispersed and peace returned, Oba went to Okiki's compound. He did not come with guards, gold, or gifts, only himself. He stood before Adana. Oba, quietly, I spoke in pride before. I weighed you against poverty, not against truth. Today, I tried to speak with actions. Did you hear them? Adana looked at him long, remembering fever and fire, arrogance and humility, silence and generosity. Adana, I heard them. They were louder than your first proposal. Oba's eyes softened. Oba, then I will not ask again. Not yet. I will only thank you, Adana, daughter of Okiki. Your kindness rescued me once. Today it rescued your sister. Tomorrow, who knows what it will rescue again? Adana's lips curved, the faintest smile. Adana, perhaps even your heart. For the first time in many moons, Oba laughed, a real laugh, deep and unguarded. It startled everyone in the compound, even himself. That night, the family sat together in a circle, sharing yam porridge and roasted fish. Efunanya rested with her head in Aneka's lap. Ngozi stole shy glances at Tai, and Adana found her eyes returning, unbidden, to Oba. The scandal had nearly destroyed them, but in its ashes grew something unexpected: respect, truth, and the faint beginning of love. And though the village still whispered the word billionaire, Adana whispered another word in her heart: man. The scandal with Cheek had barely settled when the village woke to a new season. one of whispers, blessings, and revelations. It was no longer rumor that Oba carried wealth beyond measure. The truth had stood beneath the Iroko tree. He was a billionaire, a man of cocoa fields, cattle herds, and city warehouses. Yet the greatest revelation was not the breadth of his fortune, it was how he used it. Unlike the merchants who paraded their coins, Oba gave quietly. A widow would wake to find her cracked mortar replaced. An orphan would discover new sandals left by his door. The clinic's shelves no longer lay bare. The chief himself admitted one morning, "Chief, this stranger's hand is heavier than our council's purse, but lighter in its demand. He gives and asks nothing." Some villagers wondered if they had misjudged him. Others, still cautious, whispered, "Villager are being won. A billionaire is still a billionaire. Today he gives. Tomorrow he may take." Villager 2, "But has he taken anything? Even gratitude he brushes aside." Even the doubters found fewer arguments each day. For Adana, the change was harder to accept. Pride had anchored her heart for so long that loosening it felt like betraying herself. Yet she could not deny what she saw. One evening, she found Oba in the marketplace, kneeling beside an old woman selling peppers. Her basket was half empty, her hands trembling with age. Oba, "Mother, how much for the rest?" Old woman, "2 cowries, though no one will pay now." Oba, "I will pay 4, and you will keep your peppers. Rest your feet." He placed the coins in her hand and walked away before she could protest. Adana followed him with her eyes until he disappeared into the crowd. Later that night, she whispered to Ngozi, "Adana, he gives as if money is water." Ngozi, smiling softly, "Perhaps it is, in his world." Adana, "Then why did he speak to me of poverty as if it were a disease?" Ngozi, "Because he had not yet learned that water can also heal." Adana did not answer, but her silence no longer carried anger. It carried thought. The turning point came during the feast of the new moon, when the whole village gathered under torches and drums. The chief stood to bless the people and called Oba forward. "Chief, this man has poured wealth into our laps. He is a billionaire, yes, but more than that, he is a friend. Tonight, let us honor him." The villagers cheered, but Oba raised his hand for silence. "Oba, firmly, do not honor me. Honor kindness. Honor Adana, daughter of Okiki, who cared for a stranger when he lay dying by the river. Her kindness is the root. My gifts are only fruit. If you must honor, honor her." The crowd gasped, then erupted in applause for Adana. She sat frozen, her cheeks burning, her father's hand squeezing hers with pride. Okika, whispering, "Daughter, a good name has outgrown our compound." For the first time, Adana looked at Oba not as a proud stranger, nor as a billionaire wrapped in mystery, but as a man who had carried her name into the mouths of hundreds, and she felt the knot in her chest begin to loosen. A few days later, Oba invited Okiki and his daughters to walk with him beyond the yam ridges. They followed until they reached a rise overlooking the valley. There, on the horizon, stretched endless green, rows of cocoa trees swaying in the breeze, cattle grazing like scattered pearls, and in the far distance, the outline of the stone houses with red roofs. Oba, quietly, "This is mine. My father built it. I expanded it. Land that touches sky, herds that quench their thirst in rivers, warehouses that trade with ships. This is the fortune I did not speak of." Okiki stared, speechless. Nika covered her mouth. Ngozi gasped. Adana's eyes, however, did not widen. They narrowed. "Adana, why show us this now?" "Oba, because truth hides too long becomes lie. I am wealthy, a billionaire by measure, but wealth without witness grows into rumor. I would rather you see it with your eyes than imagine it with doubt." Adana, after a long pause, "And what do you want us to do with this truth?" Oba, looking directly at her, not bow to it, only understand it. Her lips trembled, but she steadied them. Adana, you think fortune is your greatest revelation? It is not. The greater revelation is that you have learned kindness. Wealth can build walls, but kindness builds bridges. Oba's face softened. Oba, then let me cross that bridge. Her silence stretched, then broke with a sigh. Adana, one day perhaps, but not because of your fortune, because of your heart. Meanwhile, Tay returned fully to Ngozi, his doubts washed away by Oba's confession. One evening, under the mango tree, he spoke before the family. Tai, I came first with laughter, then I left with doubt, but I return now with truth. My heart has chosen Ngozi. If you permit, I will pay her bride price and build a future with her. Ngozi lowered her gaze, but the smile that touched her lips was answer enough. Okeki's eyes shone with tears. Okeki, a man who laughs honestly is richer than a millionaire who counts coins with suspicion. You have my blessing. The family cheered, and even Neka's cautious heart softened at last. Ifunanya, too, began to heal. Oba personally funded her apprenticeship with a respected midwife in the next town. Oba, you were deceived once because you did not know your worth. Let no man measure you again by flattery. Learn a trade, hold your own fortune, and walk with dignity. She hugged him with tears. Ifunanya, I will, brother. You gave me back more than my name. You gave me tomorrow. Despite all this, Adana's heart still wrestled. One evening, she asked Oba directly, Adana, why me? Why not another woman of wealth, of standing, of beauty without burden? Oba's answer came without hesitation. Oba, because when I was nothing, sick, weak, a stranger, you saw only a man, not a billionaire, not a name, not a rumor. You gave me water when others gave me suspicion. You became my fortune before I revealed my fortune. That is why. Her heart, long guarded, finally bent, not broken, but humbled. She whispered, Adana, then may kindness be the foundation of everything that follows. By the end of that season, the truth of Oba's fortune was no longer rumor, but testimony. The village spoke not only of his wealth, but of the humility that followed it. He was no longer the silent stranger or the proud billionaire. He was the man whose hidden fortune was revealed by kindness. And Adana, once only of a farmer's daughter, had become known as the woman whose compassion uncovered a destiny greater than gold. The seasons turned again, carrying the village into a time of ripening. Yams swelled fat in the ridges, cassava leaves danced in the wind, and the drums of joy began to echo in every compound. But no drum was louder than the one preparing for the day that would join two households, two destinies, and two fortunes, not in coin, but in heart. Word spread like sunrise. Tay had formally paid Ngozi's bride price, offering not only gifts of cloth, a palm oil, and livestock, but also a promise written in his actions. The village rejoiced. Women pounded yam with rhythm that matched the drums. Men tapped palm wine into calabashes until the air grew sweet. But alongside this celebration stood another whisper, stronger with each day. Would Oba speak again? Would the billionaire who once failed in words succeed in deeds? Would the farmer's daughter, Adana, finally open her heart? On the evening before the wedding feast, Oba walked alone to Okeki's compound. He carried no gold, no cattle, no chest of wealth. Instead, he carried a staff of polished wood, a farmer's tool, not a king's. Okeki welcomed him with dignity. Neka stood near the doorway, protective but silent. Adana sat beneath the mango tree, her wrapper plain, her expression steady. Oba, bowing, Okeki, father of this house, I come again, not with arrogance, but with humility. The last time I spoke of marriage, my tongue weighed your daughter against her poverty. Today, I weigh myself against her kindness, and I find myself wanting. Still, I ask, will you allow me to make Adana my wife? The courtyard held its breath. Okeki looked at his daughter. Adana, once quick to cut him down, did not turn away. She rose slowly, eyes locked with his. Adana, softly, the last time you asked, you offered me fortune as if it were a crutch. What do you offer today? Oba's voice shook, but it did not falter. Oba, not a crutch, a covenant. I offer my heart, scarred but learning. I offer my wealth, not to erase your poverty, but to honor your dignity. I offer my name, not as a chain, but as a roof. Adana, your kindness revealed my hidden fortune, not the land, not the herds, not the billions, but the truth that even a billionaire needs mercy. Adana's lips trembled, then steadied. Adana, and I offer my heart, Oba, not because of your fortune, but despite it. I will marry you, not as the daughter of a farmer who rose to wealth, but as a woman who chooses a man whose pride learned to kneel. The family erupted in joy. Even Neka wiped tears. Okeki lifted his hands to the sky. Okeki, the God who feeds us yam feeds us destiny. Tonight, 2 families become one. The following week, the village erupted with drums and song. It was a rare day, a double union. Tay and Ngozi stood together, laughter weaving through their vows like golden thread. He promised her laughter in hunger, faith in storm, and loyalty stronger than iron. She promised him gentleness in plenty, strength in trial, and love that would not fade like morning dew. Beside them, Oba and Adana stood as contrasts, his frame tall, her gaze fierce. Yet when they spoke, the harmony was clear. Oba, I came to this village a stranger with coin hidden in silence. I leave it a husband with love, loud as a drum. Billionaire I may be, but today I am simply Adana's man. Adana, I cared for you when you were nothing. I accept you now that you are everything. Let fortune serve love, never master it. The crowd cheered, ululated, and danced until the ground itself seemed to join. The feast was unlike any seen before. Long tables stretched with roasted goat, yam pottage, fresh palm wine, plantains fried golden, and bowls of okra soup steaming in clay pots. Children chased each other with sugarcane sticks. Elders told stories of how kindness can open the door to hidden fortunes. Griots sang of a farmer's daughter who gave water to a stranger and discovered not just his wealth, but his soul. Griot, singing, kindness is seed, fortune the fruit. A billionaire may build with gold, but a farmer's daughter builds with truth. As custom demanded, Oba presented gifts to the family of his bride, but unlike most, he did not come with only cattle or cloth. He came with legacy. To Okeki, he gave 10 new hoes, a cart, and the deed to a wide plot of fertile land. To Neka, he gave a storehouse filled with millet and yam, saying, so no famine will ever silence your pot. To Ngozi and Tai, he gave livestock enough to start their own herd. To Ifunanya, he gave apprenticeship papers with the midwife guild, ensuring her future was secure. But to Adana, his gift was not wealth. It was a simple wooden box. Inside lay the calabash she had once used to give him water by the river, cleaned and polished. Oba, this calabash gave me life. May it remind us that love begins not with billions, but with the single act of kindness. Tears shone in Adana's eyes as she touched it. That night, before the dancing ended, Oba rose to make one more revelation. Oba, this village gave me breath when pride could have buried me. From today, I establish a legacy fund, 10,000 calories, set aside to provide tools, seed, and medicine for widows, orphans, and farmers. It will be renewed each year from my estates. Let no daughter suffer for lack. Let no farmer's hoe go blunt. The crowd roared. Men lifted him on their shoulders. Women blessed his name. Yet Oba turned the applause toward Adana. Oba, loudly, do not thank me. Thank the farmer's daughter, whose kindness made a billionaire remember he is first a man. The chant began, strong and true. Crowd, Adana, Adana, Adana. Her pride no longer resisted. She smiled, and for the first time, she let the whole village see her joy. At dawn, when the fires burned low and the last songs drifted into silence, Elder Madhu stood and lifted his staff. Elder Madhu, we have witnessed wealth and humility, pride and kindness, fall and restoration. Let this African tale remind us, a man may be a billionaire or a beggar, but his fortune is empty without love. And a woman's kindness is the river that can water even the driest pride. Today, 2 unions remind us that true riches are not counted in cowries, but in covenant. The crowd bowed their heads. Oba reached for Adana's hand. She placed it in his without hesitation. Tay clasped Ngozi's hand beside them. 2 couples, 2 unions, 2 futures, woven into one destiny. Years later, travelers would still tell the story. Children would ask their mothers, who was Adana? And the answer would always come, mother's voice. She was the farmer's daughter who cared for a stranger and discovered his fortune. She married a billionaire. Yes, but more than that, she taught him that kindness is the greatest wealth. And so the tale lived on, an African story of love, pride, humility, and hidden fortune, where kindness turned poverty into dignity, suspicion into trust, and strangers into family. And so, the farmer's daughter who showed kindness to a stranger discovered a fortune greater than gold, a heart transformed by love. But tell us, what do you think? Was it fate, or was it her kindness that changed everything? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let us know when and from where you're watching. This is African Tales by Sanan, where every story carries a lesson, every twist hides a truth, and every ending leaves you wanting more. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next emotional and suspenseful journey.